As this report.
Government aims to reduce imports, boost productivity, and create jobs through the 24-hour economy. With a one-job, three-shift strategy, the president clarified that the initiative goes beyond merely extending working hours.
Let me be clear here. The 24H Plus agenda is not simply about extending working hours. It is about unleashing productivity, expanding opportunity, accelerating exports through well-structured, multi-sectoral, and inclusive interventions. We're not attempting to fix everything everywhere all at once. The private sector will lead the 24-hour plus program. Government will facilitate and not dominate.
The president announced the major interventions under the program. While acknowledging the challenges that may arise with the policy, he expressed confidence in the program's success.
Our first president, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, envisioned the Volta project at Akosombo not only as a source of power to power Ghana's industrial sector. He also saw it as an integrated project that will provide agribusiness, it will provide lands for agriculture, irrigation. Unfortunately, that aspect of his vision have been lost. Today, we're recreating Kwame Nkrumah's dream. We'll irrigate over 2 million hectares of land for intensive agriculture. The path will be challenging, but we will succeed.
Meanwhile, presidential advisor on the policy has called on the finance minister to take direct oversight of incentive structures tied to the policy to ensure transparency.
We have presented our 24-hour plus incentives package along with its impact assessment report to the Ministry of Finance for final review and adoption. Our proposals to the Finance Minister aim to simplify incentives and eliminate unnecessary bureaucratic discretion, thereby discouraging arbitrariness and facilitating the automation of processes.
That was Dr. Guzitano, Presidential Advisor on the 24-hour economy, speaking at the launch of this event this week. We'll come back to the studio and we have a new guest who's joining us on this particular subject matter. In studio is Nelson Kujo Kwagbeji. He's head of finance at Melbourne Capital. He's also a tax analyst to help us break down this whole 24-hour economy. During the launch, we were told that it's now going to be 24-hour plus, and the president gave the breakdown. He says it's going to be Grow 24, Make 24, Build 24, Show 24, Connect 24, Fund 24, Aspire 24, and Go 24. So these are the thematic areas where the president or the 24-hour economy is going to hang on. Nelson, thank you very much for your time. You've done extensive work on this whole policy. What's your take on this?
All right, thank you very much. Good morning to you and good morning to my senior brother. The first time we heard of the 24-hour policy was during the election
during the campaign time.
Campaign time, when the NDC made mention of the fact that once they are elected, they are going to run the economy on 24-hour basis. And they gave us certain details as to which countries are currently practicing the 24-hour economy and the benefit of that particular 24-hour economy to the general growth of those economies. And so I think yesterday, the policy was launched, and the president made clear that they intend creating 1.7 million quality and decent jobs. In fact, in every economy, there are 4 general policies that affect the growth and development of the economy. We have the fiscal policy, which deals about government revenue expenditure and debt management. We have the monetary policy that actually talks about fiscal, monetary stability, inflation, and general prices. We also have the exchange rate policy, and finally the structural policy. The fundamental issue is that when we are using a particular policy for so long a time and it's not yielding the right result, then it means that there must be a policy shift. So this is where the 24-hour economy comes in. We all go to work at 8 a.m., we close at 5 p.m. That ends it. Then we go and sleep. But the government is saying that they are going to run the economy on 3-shift basis. in order to create 1.7 million quality and decent jobs. Now, as part of the rollout of the program, the government said that the program will be rolled out in 2 stages. The stage 1 is to capacitate the private sector in order to increase productivity. And by so doing, they are going to incentivize the private sector, especially companies that will hook up onto the program. So one of the incentives that they intend giving to the private sector, companies that wants to be part of the 24-hour policy, is the zero import duty on raw materials and machines that they will eventually use for their production. They also want to give CIT exemption, that is corporate tax exemption, to companies who are into strategic agricultural sector. They also want to give corporate tax rebates of 25% to those who operate on a 2-shift system and 50% to those who operate on 3-shift system. They also want to give a targeted VAT exemption, to reduce the cost of locally manufactured goods. In fact, they also want to give a discounted electricity tariff for companies that operate under the 24-hour economy, program. And so we heard of the time of use tariff, where when you are operating from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., you'll be given a certain, benefit as far as utility, electricity tariff is concerned. They also talk about fast-track electricity connection. And so there are array of benefits that they intend giving to the companies that will operate under this particular policy. But coming from purely a private sector point of view, my worry is that when you give all these tax benefits to companies that operate under the 24-hour policy program, won't that culminate into revenue loss for the government? We have seen in the past, if you remember the famous one district, one factory, exactly. Government committed more than 540 million Ghana cedis to incentivize those who were operating under that program. But what has been the status of that particular program as of today? So clearly, if measures are not put in place to actually seal the revenue gap, we may end up repeating the mistakes that we did in the past.
1D1F, yeah.
Yes. Then again, in this country, we have implemented so many programs, but the results have not been positive. Let me give you some examples. In the agricultural sector alone, in 2008, there was a program called Fertilizer Subsidy Program, where 207 million was allocated in the budget. In 2009, there was a program called Youth in Agriculture, where 10 million Ghana cedis was also allocated. You remember the famous One Village, One Dam in 2017, about 95 million Ghana cedis was committed to that program. Then the famous Planting for Food and Jobs Phase 1, we committed 560 million Ghana cedis into that program. Then Planting for Food and Jobs Phase 2, we also committed 660 million Ghana cedis into that program. However, food inflation has been an albatross on the neck of this country. Upon the implementation of all these agricultural-related programs in the past, food inflation has always been a problem. So the challenge is, what will happen if we are not able to implement the 24-hour economy policy very well? Because all the policies that we implemented in the past, as of today, they have not yielded the right result. In fact, in this budget, the 2025 budget, there is a program called Agriculture for Economic Transformation Agenda, where about 1.5 billion Ghana cedis was committed. And so if you look at the historical antecedent or the history of policy implementation and execution in this country, we have all the nice policies, we have all the beautiful policies. However, the implementation and the impact of those policies have not been the best as we have witnessed in the country. And so with the 24-hour economy policy, yes, it's a very brilliant idea. It is going to capacitate the private sector. The president himself made mention of the fact that the 24-hour economy policy will be private sector led, which simply means that enough attention, enough resources, enough incentives will be given to private sector in order to create that 1.7 million jobs. The challenge we had in the past was that government will roll out a program, they want to implement the program for the private sector, but the government itself